Thank you so much for the introduction. This is my first FinOps X. So if you don't mind, I need your engagement because you're such an amazing community. I want to do a selfie on stage with Ziva, if that's fine. So I need your engagement, OK? That's it. Hands up. Woo! Amazing. Thank you so much. It's amazing to be here. And thank you so much for joining us in our session. My co-host is Ziva. Please stand next to me. Thank you so much. And thanks, guys. And today we're going to talk about taking FinOps to the next level, or what comes beyond optimization. And before we'll dive into our session, I want us to be best friends. And for that, I want to introduce ourselves. My name is Dvir. I've been at Wix for more than 7.5 years. I joined to implement the FinOps culture at Wix. And I'm a certified engineer, certified practitioner, also a subject matter expert on cloud financial management on AWS.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to our session. We are very excited to be here. I'm Ziva. I'm a FinOps engineer at Wix. I joined Wix 3 years ago, and I became a FinOps by mistake without knowing I'm doing FinOps. And I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for FinOps Foundation.
Amazing. So to give you some context on what the FinOps at Wix is, we first need to know Wix. And we're going to talk a bit about our scale. So those of you who don't know what Wix does, it's a website building platform. We offer web services and advanced business tools to small, medium enterprise businesses. We work B2B and B2C. And I see familiar faces in the crowd, so don't judge, because for Israeli scale, it's quite a big company. Proud to say we're serving more than 260 million users around 190 countries in the world. What's most awesome about this company, it's very engineering-centric, because half of our men count are R&D and engineers, or as you call them, the guys that impact our bottom line. And our engineering scale is quite large. We have 447 GAs per day. We have more than 800 products developed every year, and more than 5,000 microservices in the production. Quite a lot of scale. We have to serve our content, again, to 190 countries, so a bit of more complexity in our infrastructure. This is just a graph since 2015 on our latest innovations. I joined Wix, as I said, in 2017 to implement the FinOps culture. And to talk about the FinOps journey, you're probably asking yourself, why am I standing here, right? Why me and not someone else? Wix is a public company. In our public report, we showed a 24% reduction on GAAP expenses year over year in 2023. And the interesting part about this that you won't find in the public reports is that all that effort, it's engineering innovation. And it's not rate optimization. It's not new contracts. It's not compute saving plans or reservations. It's pure engineering initiatives, innovation, and engagement to reduce our bottom line. So for those of you who don't know, Wix is not born in the cloud company. We started in our physical data center, and we migrated to the cloud in 2017. And we just ran on someone else's computer, right? So the scale was someone else's problem, but the cost became our own, because we identified since 2017 that one of the challenges was cost. And in our FinOps journey, I want to talk about 3 major milestones to share with you guys. Now, I know you've heard this story thousands of times before, but we do have some lessons that we want to share with you guys that we learned along the way, where we succeeded, where we failed. And let's start with our journey. We started, as most of you, cost observability, or how much things are costing me, and why we, as a company, completely failed in this phase. We moved to waste, and how to create waste visibility in the cloud, or exactly what can we do about our costs, and why we think it's too late already. And the last and most important part, which I'll give to Ziva, because I'm a good manager, is control and prevention. How to engage with engineers, how to talk about efficiency, and furthermore, how to be more proactive, add more guardrails, governance, and automations to our environment, so we won't have to run after our own tail. So I'm going to start a timer because as I discussed with the FinOps Foundation, you guys know this story. So 5 minutes, go. Cost and waste visibility. We implemented an amazing tagging strategy at the beginning. First year, everything was pretty much allocated, 90%. We created amazing accountability and ownership dashboards in our own grown tool that we developed internally at Wix. Now, 2017, not a lot of players in the FinOps product of cost observability, so we developed something that was very specific to Wix. And I need your help here. Raise of hands, how many think that engineers actually go on a day-to-day basis to look at cost dashboards and gain insights and take action items from them? Oh my God, no one. We actually, I had a huge comeback for someone who raises their hand, but never mind, you missed it. Okay, so first of all, I'm so jealous. Secondly, do you hire? Okay. Epic fail at Wix. We couldn't talk with engineers about cost. No one cares about it. And the lesson that we've learned at that point of time is that for Wix, and again, I'm not talking about generally speaking, but for Wix, cost didn't matter. And engineers didn't care about cost. They didn't allocate the financial waste as their own or as a thing that need to take care of. But we did learn a couple of important lessons. Constraints. Back in 2017, 2018, we can apply constraints on our engineers to enable innovation, right? We all know that stuff. And now it's no longer we need to reduce our performance by 100 milliseconds. We need to improve our performance by 100 milliseconds under this constraint of the financial aspect. And things were good for a while because they can understand policies. They can enforce them. And it created an amazing impact at Wix. So cost was negative and had a negative impact. But when you start talking with engineers about benchmarking, how they're doing compared to other workloads, how they enforce their policy, what's their unit of economics that we measure, and is it changing along the way, it created a very positive impact on Wix in the discussions that we had. Which brings us to another lesson learned, waste. Waste was a financial term, and we use it wrong. Waste can be bad engineering. We can come to an engineer, and as the same way that I expect them not to write wasteful code, I expect them not to run on wasteful environments. And it became an R&D principle. It's no longer a financial principle, but an engineering one. And it was really cool because common language was a huge barrier between how we implemented FinOps at Wix. So this helped us move the needle a bit more. And you all know the shrug when you say someone, hey, your workload is costing $200,000 a month, and it's like, okay, cool. So we thought utilization was key for success. And was it? Let's figure it out. Let's add more utilization. Now our ownership dashboards look like that. Not just cost, but utilization. We gathered everything from cloud monitoring to internal tools that we have, and we aggregated everything into our own data warehouse, presenting the engineers with their own tools, right? We use Grafana to our UI. And we implemented not just usage, right? Because usage, as I said, it's important. We know what the status is. But we implemented waste. As we said, waste is bad engineering. So how can we create waste metrics? And we kind of dealt with how to create waste metric on our monitoring systems. And instead of showing how much they're trending in cost, we showed them big, massive red dashboards. This is how much you guys are wasting. And every team could see for themselves where their detached DBSs are, or how much they're spending on DynamoDB provision versus consumed IOPS, for example. And so far, no surprises, right? Looking at the state of FinOps 2022, 2023, most companies start with the biggest challenge, right? Cost observability. Moving forward to 2024, regardless of your company size, the biggest challenge today is reducing waste. So here we go. So how do we actually shift that mindset, right? From cost observability, we want to make sure that our engineers know what they're paying for, to reducing waste. And for us at the time, we needed a currency. We needed to come and pay engineers in order to gain their attention, change their priorities, engage with us. And we realized the best currency we have in a company is trust. When you build small building blocks with your engineering teams, and you show them small successes, it creates engagement. It makes them more, they want to engage with you in order to be part of your process, because you've built that trust and you show their impact. And accuracy is key. And I want to give an example, a true example from Wix that we did that hurt our trust and where we failed and why we understand it's a very important lesson to be learned. If you create a model for on-demand workload and you come to your engineer and you say, hey, I need you to change this to spot instances, and your model is based on the AWS documentation. For those of you who don't know, the AWS documentation shows spot prices for the lowest spot price in that region. Spot prices different between availability zones, and you can reach up to 30% difference in your model and the impact that the engineer will achieve eventually. That hurts trust. So if the engineer change priorities, engage with us, and see half the expected reduction, it's a problem because we lose that currency moving forward. And the other thing that I mentioned, focus on waste metrics and not cost. Our dashboards no longer care about how much things cost because we can't generate action items. We can't engage with them. But if I'm generating how my environment is doing from the financial side, like how much I'm wasting, it's easier, right? So if you can take, like for example, an EC2 instance, and it's 30% CPU utilization, you can actually generate the 70% other as waste based on the hourly rate of that instance, or 60% if you want that buffer. But you can generate waste metrics from anything, and you can aggregate everything into one unified view. And what's awesome about it, if you group by user-defined tags, then you can gain visibility for each and every team in your organization where to put effort, right? Because it's no longer how much things cost, but top to bottom, you have the biggest spenders, the biggest wasters, to the lowest wasters. Why this phase partially failed at Wix? I mean, on paper, it sounds amazing, right? We were there. We had all those automations, and we had all those waste metrics to engage with them. But why it partially failed? And we're talking about around 2020, and FinOps was a huge thing. I mean, less of today, but it was becoming a thing. And I remember that statement back then was FinOps is being proactive, right? Remember that at the beginning? FinOps is being proactive. And we didn't feel proactive. And this is the most important lesson we learned at the time. We weren't proactive enough. If we're waiting to take action from cost reports, if we're taking actions from utilization metrics, we're already too late. It's against everything that I believe should FinOps be. And every dollar not provisioned on the cloud is a dollar saved, right? Which brings us to the most interesting part of what you wanted to hear, control and prevention, Ziva.
So this is the most important in the phase in our journey that we are learning at Wix, how to control and prevent financial incident at Wix. So we learned that the key for success is to be a proactive, as Dvir mentioned. So when we start to be a proactive, we start to apply the infra cost.
Oh, I forgot to turn my timer to 5 minutes. Was it 5 minutes? I think I'm fine. OK, so I'm going to jump in on InfraCost because it's a platform that I've implemented at Wix. We were one of the first adopters of InfraCost when they started. I'm talking about the open source. I'm not selling anything. So what we did back then was build a wrapper around it. And we thought, like, anyone don't know what InfraCost does? Or? You don't know what OK, so InfraCost actually uses or utilizes the public billing API for AWS to attach a cost impact per your pull request in Terraform. So an engineer does a change in Terraform, which changes your production. InfraCost shows the cost impact of that change. What's awesome about it, it's a JSON. So you can take it, you can put it into a beautiful system, and track it over time. And this helps us govern budgets, govern changes in production, and alert whenever a model in Terraform or a segment in our production actually exceeded its budget. And again, amazing solution, right? But we ask ourselves, Ziva, was it early enough?
Not. The answer is not. It's not early enough, and we would like to catch it early. And this is the reason that we would like to be a part of the process, part of the design, part of the planning, and part of the take a decision with the engineering. And we found that we can to be a part of the process and to integrate to RFC a process. RFC process is a process that already exists at Wix. So we integrate the RFC process. We are now a part of the approval loop for when engineer would like to apply a new project or new feature, they need to get approval from security, from production, from network, and from FinOps. We are sitting together to get a decision about a new project.
So we finally got a seat at the table.
Exactly. And what is our part in the RFC? The first thing, we would like to define the problem. Many times, engineers come with us with a solution, but they don't know what is the problem. So this is the first thing that we are doing during the RFC. The second thing is to understand the value and the impact that the solution can bring to Wix. And then we are calculate the pricing model. When we are talking about the pricing model, we are talking about the TCO, not just only to calculate the EC2, the storage, or the network. We calculate all the TCO. It means if they related the license or involved in license, and then if we have integrate to other provider, and the engineering effort, the operational effort. So we are gathering all the pricing to one model, and then we are setting the success criteria and the financial KPI to make sure for the long term we will be in the right direction, and then we are setting the budget alert.
Now, just one point here. I know it doesn't sound like it can scale, right? But this process is an educational process for our engineers and our champions. So one time we show them how to do it. Next time, they come prepared.
And the budget alert is our ability to make sure all the financial or FinOps practices are setting correctly in the new agenda. For example, in the budget alert, we are doing the budget alert according for tags. So it means we need to setting the new tag.
I don't know. There are thousands of agendas. I mean, should we do it?
No. Our method and our agenda at Wix is to shift left to the engineering, and that engineer will take the responsibility about the cost. We can handle all the budget alert at Wix. We have around 2,000 engineers in R&D. So our method is to shift left the responsibility about cost to the engineer side. And this is an example from Terraform to apply the budget alert during the provisioning process. But what happens when assumption meets reality? There are two options for the increase. One of them is grow. When a business grows, more traffic, more instances.
This is amazing. This is good stuff.
And the second one is financial incident. And financial incident can come from over-provisioning, wrong configuration, a bug, etc.
This is terrible. This is the bad stuff.
So how do we can create the engagement with our engineer?
I mean, how do engineers currently using or handling incidents in production today?
We have a process.
Oh, so can we use the same process?
The same process.
Awesome.
We apply the same process for financial incidents exactly as we handle the production incident. The same process. We adapt the relevant fields, but the process is the same process. So let's talk about the flow for financial incident. So when we got anomaly detection, when we saw increase, we need to investigate if we're talking about grow or if we're talking about incident. Grow, it's something that unplanned. It's planned, but it's not in our budget. And incident, it's unplanned and not in our budget. So when we start the investigation and when we decide we are talking about the incident, we are opening a JIRA ticket. JIRA ticket is the same process as we opening production incident. And expectation from our engineer is to get a full attention about the incident. According to the SLA we define severity for the ticket according to the cost impact and to get accountability about the incident. And they need to take a conclusion and action item. And we add also a postmortem. The postmortem is after the incident, all the relevant stakeholders sitting together and think about how we can avoid from these cases in the future. And this is a part of our learning process.
It creates an educational loop. I just want to jump in for a second, because eventually what this process helped us achieve is accountability and ownership. Because you no longer have to require the goodwill of the engineer to take action, right? It's part of an incident process. We have predefined SLAs. We have people managing this process end-to-end story, and we get to a resolution in a very appropriate time instead of, yeah, I'm going to look at it in the next sprint. So it creates this better engagement and, as Ziva said, better educational loop in our processes.
Right. So when we have a growth, there's a different flow for growth. If the budget is approved, we update the budget and close the case. But if it's a new workload, we go to the RFC, as I mentioned before. And then the workload should get approval from the security, from network, and from FinOps. If they get approval, we update the budget. If not, we apply a decommission. And this is the structure. New workload, go to the RFC flow. And if it gets approval, we update the budget. If not, we apply the decommission.
Yeah, no longer just carrots, but also a stick.
So I presented you two lessons learned about the financial incident and about the RFC, and both of them is something that already exists in our environment and our engineer pipeline. We don't need to create a new processes or a new system or to add the complexity about our environment.
We're part of their day-to-day.
And this lesson learned that I really like, it's my baby, the celebrate success. So each month we gathering all the information for the management level. We gathering about the success story, about the incident, about the cost optimization, about the amount over month, about our consumption. If we would like to raise any flag about any contract. So we're gathering each month all the information for the management. And the section of the success story, we also sending for the relevant team and relevant to a relevant manager. And this is our way to create the engagement with our engineer. And this is our way to create the culture that we would like to apply the FinOps in our organization. And this is the lesson learned that the tip that I got when I came for weeks, 3 years ago. And Dvir told me, ask questions, and ask the right question, the hard question, and not afraid to ask the question. So when engineers come with information, we ask to bring the data. And we found many times that they say something and the data show us something different. So our lesson learned is trust the data and not the people.
True story.
So, Dvir, you can add.
Thank you so much, Ziva. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Can you stay in the, beyond the, come? Yeah, inside the red. Thank you so much. Awesome. So I want to introduce a concept at Wix that we've built 3 years ago. It's called VICO, or Value and Impact Center of Excellence. And it correlated to what Ziva was talking about, ask questions. And the mission statement of VICO that we've created was every process, everything that we do at Wix related to our production, everything that we develop, every product that we create or design has to have measurable success criteria, has to have measurable value and impact, or how does it impact my business, and is it in a positive way, and measurable utilization metrics that I can track to see if assumptions meets reality. And efficiency is key for success. And this is the beyond optimization segment of the presentation. Because eventually what we want to achieve is not to reduce our waste. I mean, eventually, it's a noble effort. But I think that we found something more interesting to look at. And the biggest lesson that we've learned in the last years is not to adjust our utilization metrics to understand what is our waste, but to understand what kind of business is running on my infrastructure. And that was really the tipping point at Wix, where we actually created a new waste model. I'm going to show it to you in a second. But once you apply your business logic, things or conversations become a lot easier in order to engage with engineers, workloads, and other agendas you have in the company. This is the VICO framework. Right, in a nutshell, I'm not going to go through all of that, but what we want to just mention that sometimes developers want to innovate. And that's OK, even if they're working under your constraints, under the FinOps constraint, and that's amazing. But we found that most innovation that engineers wanted to do were solution-driven solutions. And as Ziva mentioned before, they didn't come to solve any problem at Wix, but just to implement cool stuff. And we're OK with that. But there are times when we found out that it wasn't really correlated to what the business needs, or how it impacted the business in a negative way. So we didn't want to disable innovation. We just want to make sure that we're innovating in the right direction. And again, using specific unit of economics to each workload, work with the designers, work with the engineers on the architecture. And we introduced this new waste model at Wix. Oh, sorry. No, I ruined the surprise. OK. So you all know the common waste on the cloud. So raise of hands, what is the average waste on the cloud? 30%. Around 33%, right? Amazing. So this is the new waste model at Wix. Yeah, I already saw the slide. No, he said 33, so it's fine. From 100% of our production workload, around 30%, as you said, and correctly, is waste. And waste is easy to mitigate, it's easy to pinpoint, and it's easy to govern, automate, and control. What about the last 70%? So we divided them to two segments. It's utilized workloads, around 30% of our hardware and infrastructure, and around 40% of utilized waste. And I don't think this segment takes enough attention. So I'm here to shed some light on it. And now you're telling me, oh, Dvir, you're coming with those high-level concepts. What do you want? So I brought examples. Let's do a simplified caching solution. You have your origin, you have your caching servers, and you have your clients. Now, interestingly enough, when you come to an engineer as a FinOps and you say, what this solution does? So the answer would be to improve performance. OK? And you'll see it in the graphs, right? They'll come to you and show you, this is when we started implementing the caching solution. This is how we improved our performance. And that's amazing. Now, if you don't know, caching solution will be fully utilized no matter how you use it. It stores objects in your memory. It creates and handles thousands of requests. And usually speaking, again, depends on your company size, it's a very, very expensive workload. So how can we tackle that? I mean, it's fully utilized, right? It won't even be on our radar. And the questions we have to ask is not just what this workload is doing or how it's serving our business, is what can we do as engineers to run this workload more efficiently? Now, raise of hands, the only KPI measuring the efficiency of a caching solution would be hit ratio. Amazing. What if I told you that for a huge workload that is fully utilized, we only have 30% hit ratio? Is it waste? Of course it is. And as we said, we can create waste metrics from everything. So now 70% of my caching solution is waste, untaggable objects. What can I do about it from the engineering or architecture side? It's a new, different discussion. Another example, Kafka. I have a producer. It's a message way to deliver messages between producers and consumers. I have a producer producing 1 megabyte of data. I have 5 consumers consuming that data. Very utilized pipeline, right? Everyone's read it. What if I ask the teams that are consuming that message, how much of that information you're actually using? Which fields you actually need? What if they're using only a fraction of that data? So we can optimize that workload. So 66% wasteful pipeline gets to be optimized. ATL, migration waste. Data platform, want to migrate from extract, transform, load pipeline into a different product. Active, fully utilized. And this is, again, only by understanding the business, only by understanding what is running on those hardware or those instances, we can actually start an important discussion on how to reduce that waste, the utilized waste. Last example, a logging solution. I've seen it countless of times. Centralized logging solution versus saving the logs on top of your EBS disks. You're keeping a huge footprint of EBS disk while you also have data duplication somewhere else. And again, those disks fully utilized. How do we pinpoint that specific use case without understanding the business running on top of it? So the key takeaways here are to understand the business, because every disk, small to biggest instances, serve my business, and it has to have a positive impact on my business. And unfortunately, we're not talking about it enough. I mean, we can't map the value of every workload that we have on top of my business. And that brings us to the second takeaway. We need to work with engineers to create those engineering KPIs to measure efficiency. Not just to measure how am I doing, but what can I do to improve? And the last one, as Ziva said, ask the right questions. Not just ask what this workload is doing in my environment, but how can we improve it? How can we make it more efficient? Don't be afraid to go into those conversations. I want to talk a bit about what's next. And I want to share that with you because one of the biggest challenges that we have today is building forecasting budgets. And we've been doing it manually, bottom up, since, I guess, forever, based on historical data, statistical roadmap, and our plans ahead. We want to automate that. And I can't share more details yet, but stay tuned for next year. The second thing I'm working on today is CFF as an AI model. For those of you who don't know what CFF is, it's the Cloud Financial Framework by AWS. It brings you a lot of best practices on every one of their services that is supported and tells you how to work with them appropriately and better. The only thing it doesn't do is how my environment is doing compared to that. So we want to take all that amazing information, apply it to our environment, and understand if that is something that can generate recommendations. What can I change with my architecture based on those best practices? And the last thing that I've been a huge advocate in Wix was Vico as an organizational efficiency. Now, I know FinOps is branching out to everywhere now, right? We have sustainability, we have on-premises, IT asset management. But what if I tell you FinOps is everything, right? In your personal life, right? But also in an organization. So why not create useful metrics for my CFO based on rent, marketing campaigns? So this is something that we explore today at Wix. And that's it, guys. I hope you find it interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ziva and Dvir. I think there are questions, no? No questions? Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
With the decision-making process you had around the kind of ticketing between incidents and grow, how do you actually handle that first segment of knowing which direction you're going to put it? Is that on you guys? Is that being done by the engineers? Is it programmatic?
That's a great question. Everyone heard it? Perfect. So this is a great question. We have multiple ways to understand it. First and foremost, unit of economics. So if my request is 25 cents per request and now it's $10 per request, I pretty much understand it's not a business growth, right? But we have other ways to understand it based on previous GAs for that specific workloads on the application level. And I don't know, every use case, like there are dozens of them. So, but we have ways to understand initially, if it's a business growth based on unit economics or changes in the production, or if it's an incident that was done. Interestingly enough, we are still debating on the most challenging aspects of it when it's not straightforward, right? So increasing traffic, for example, in a load balancer that no one used before. So cool. It's still a challenge, but as we said, investigation, not just.
So I really liked your talk, first of all.
Thank you so much.
And I had a question about the budget. So I like the idea of shifting left. At our company, we're doing a lot of that shifting left, like you said, and we're also experiencing the fact that it's not early enough, you know? And I like the idea of setting budgets. One of the issues, though, is that although you can tag a lot of AWS resources, a lot of them are shared, and sometimes they're big expenses, like in our case, Kubernetes clusters or, you know, other stuff. And how do you handle that? Like, how do you account for big costs in your bill that happen to be shared, and you can't really charge them back to teams or things like that, or have like one owner in charge of that budget?
So it's a great question, and it kind of depends on your technological stack. I mean, it depends how well is your monitoring implemented or what kind of visibility you have. So for example, today, if you're running on EKS, you have that information already in the core because you can enable cost allocation in the cost reports. If you're running on COPS, for example, and you have your on-premises Prometheus, you can generate a wrapper around it to get all that information and allocate those costs based on the hourly run rate per CPU of the instances that you use. But you have to build it. I mean, I don't know any product that do it. No, but we're talking about isolated workloads. So for example, not shared tenancy. This is a great question, but we can take it offline later.
Yeah. So you did talk about waste, focusing on waste and stuff. How do you prevent from going on the other side of the pendulum and optimizing too much? Like, I did not hear any forecasting, or how do you say, okay, I am trying to optimize on waste, but then, I don't know, some peak season hits and you are like, oh, this is too much optimization. Now we need to roll back and put more resources to it. So I don't know if you had any experience. How do you deal with the situation like that?
So another great, you guys are awesome. I mean, those are great questions. So as Ziva mentioned, part of the RFC process is to understand the TCO. So if we're opening an RFC for optimization effort, we have to understand what the engineering effort that it takes and the iteration that it needs to have. Now, I don't know, because it's a very general idea of how to forecast the unforeseeable, but we are trying to catch all edge cases when we're approaching optimization, but it also depends on the capacity. So for example, for a $200 a month optimization, we won't shake the boat. But if it's $50,000 a month, then it's a completely different story, and we do want to allocate the engineering effort for that. But again, we kind of doing that as we go, right? Because if we're finding something that we never expected, then we rethink our strategy and we pivot.
Hi, great presentation. Thank you so much. Have you seen that shifting FinOps or cost left has slowed down how quickly you can get new features out to market? Because it's one more element that engineers have to calculate before it's approved and out the door.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Like, have you seen that as one more thing that engineers have to do, which is look for budgets or shifting things left? As a result of that, getting things out the door is slower?
Amazing question, and I didn't do the statistical survey on that, but what we can say is it's already part of what they're already doing. So as Ziva said, we kind of integrated with their own pipelines and their day-to-day. So RFC, they're already doing that. So the only thing that they need to do extra is just to understand what will be the cost impact for that. Now again, are we doing for every workload RFC? No, just the impactful ones and the isolated that we can, manage. Make sense?
Yep. So waste is a negative term. Did you receive any pushback using that term?
That's great. I'm not using waste in my conversation, but efficiency.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not coming to people saying you're wasteful. I'm coming to people and saying you're working inefficiently.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Anyone else? Oh. Oops.
It's a very good question, though.
Yeah.
I mean, the common language was a huge problem for us.
Hi, can you tell us a little bit about how you define your unit economics?
Can we take it offline because it's like a huge subject?
It's another talk, right?
But generally speaking, as I said, we have to understand the business. Yeah. So we kind of worked with BA and with BI, with our data platform, to generate BI events for any transaction activity, so we can track back like pipelines, and then we track like how many requests for this specific workload run on this specific hardware, and what's the cost for it. So again, it's a bit complicated in a shared tenancy workload. Isolated workloads are very simple. I can understand what's my ratio for build server per cost, and build time versus other stuff. So let's take it offline.
Yeah, just to add on the question about the speed. Amazing talk, by the way.
Thank you so much.
What we see, I'm one of the founders of InfraCost, which you mentioned. Thank you for the shout out. And what we see to your question about speed is it's already in the engineering workflow, and 90% of the pull requests they send, we're like, you're good to go. It's just a pat on the back. You're good, you're good. It's finding that 10%, like you were saying. Those are the outliers, and they are the ones that will bust your budget.
Yeah.
But the engineer doesn't know which one those are. And it's kind of pause. Hey, take a minute, pause on these ones, have a look at it. The other ones, just go. So we don't see any slowdowns.
Yeah, maybe just to add a disclaimer, the governance that we do are for impactful workloads. We're not treating, if you change your request from 2 CPUs to 4 CPUs, we're not part of that process. It's still an engineering process. But if you're trying to implement, for example, a new caching solution, then it's a completely different story.
Final question.
So, yeah, I know that infra, questions around the shift left that you guys are using, it's pretty cool that, it's more closer to the engineers. So, are you guys primarily Terraform shop, or do you guys have other technology to spin up infrastructure? Because I think I did speak to the InfraCost team. I think they support Terraform primarily, and we use Crossplane. So it's wanted to know your insights on that, how you guys are. What infra, what technologies are you guys using to spin up the infra apart from Terraform? Is it only Terraform shop?
It's an in-house tool that I've built. So everything's managed from the financial side at Wix with a tool that I've built 5 years ago. And as I said, it aggregates everything to a single data warehouse. UI is Grafana, so I didn't have to tackle that. The backend uses reporting, analytics, anomaly detection, and alerting. And it also implements specific workloads specific to Wix. So it's very tightly coupled in how we do things and what is being generated. Other than that, we use InfraCost, again, the open source, to create the engagement from our engineering and visibility in the PR level. But most of our work today, and it's important to emphasize, most of our work today is on the design and architecture phase. Mm-hmm. So we're not running after our own tail. We have automation governance in place. And we try, as I said, to focus on the utilized waste that we have today. I hope I answered your question.
Cool. Thank you so much. Can I get a massive round of applause for Ziva?
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Check out more FinOps X 2024 content on our YouTube channel on the 2024 playlist. Support our channel by liking, subscribing, clicking the notification bell, and by leaving comments and questions for our speakers. We appreciate your support.